Hello, this is Robert Rickover. I'm an Alexander teacher in Omaha, Nebraska, and my guest, Imogen Ragone, is an Alexander teacher in Wilmington, Delaware. And we're going to talk today about, um, the need for, you could say we're going to talk about the need for Alexander technique directions. That would be one way of phrasing it. But just as a starting point, uh, so-called negative Alexander technique directions or paradoxical directions work because your unconscious mind is biased in your favor. So it wants to help. It doesn't really want to mess around.
So my take on this, and
Yeah, okay.
in your note to me, you said your mind and nervous system, and I think that's
Yeah,
me
well,
getting to the point.
yeah, yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
they're both together.
yeah,
Your brain
right,
and your nervous
right,
system are all
yeah,
part of the same system. In
right,
fact, everything is. But
right.
that our nervous system is always trying to do what is best for us.
Yeah.
But it responds to the signals it is getting from either internally or externally. And one thing that directions can do is help give signals that will, so for instance, when we're in a more fight or flight tense, that's not because our nervous system is doing exactly what it should be in response to the signals it is getting. But we
Hmm.
can learn to give different signals because we maybe don't need to be in fight or flight most of the time. Uh, does
Right.
that
Well,
make sense?
yeah, that in that example it does, but let's think of a more mundane example.
Mhm.
Let's say that you twist your ankle
Okay.
and you're going to be walking around for a little while, favoring that foot.
Mhm.
And over a few days or maybe a week or two, the sprain that you've created, I'm assuming you haven't broken any bones or anything,
Mhm.
the sprain will largely take care of itself. But any habits of walking, say, that you carry on past the healing and won't necessarily all go away. Some of it may last for
Right, because
decades.
maybe there's loads of reasons, but again, I think it's the same system that's in operation.
Right.
You're subconsciously anxious that you're going to hurt or it is going to hurt still, and so you keep walking in this way that favors the other leg, and there's not, so therefore bringing some conscious thought and direction to tell your mind, body, brain system that it's safe to put your foot down normally,
Mhm.
etc.
Okay,
It
I'll
can
buy
be
that.
this.
Although I would, in the case of someone who's twisted their ankle and years later they're still carrying around a little dysfunctional pattern in walking, I'd
I think
say
there's a
that,
little that it's still from that system that's never known that it was healed, and that's why it's um,
okay, okay,
or
and
that could be
does
part of it anyway for some people.
a solution is to use an Alexander direction
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
is basically you saying what you're thinking, what you would like to happen.
Mhm.
For example, a simple one, I'm free, would be a very simple but effective Alexander direction. You're just requesting that. You're definitely not getting into the weeds of how that's going to happen because that's not the job of your conscious mind. But you have to do that in order to make the change. Or Yeah, you have to do that to make the change. And the question, well, I've wondered, why does that have to happen? Why doesn't it just take care of itself? So many other things take care of themselves. You cut your finger and, you know, maybe you put a
Mhm.
Band-Aid on it or something for a day or so, but you're not sitting around working on the healing of that cut. It's just all happening on its own.
Mhm.
Why would developing a habit that's not helpful, uh, get not developing, but undeveloping, getting rid of a habit that's not useful? Why should you have to intervene to do that? Why wouldn't it just take care of itself? That was the question I was puzzled by.
Mhm. Mhm.
And
And what did you come up with?
I came up with,
Oh, fine.
and it does seem that that's the case, right? I mean, that there you have to ask for a change, request the change. And how you ask and how you request whatever is very important. You don't want to be barking orders at yourself or anything like that. Very light
Mhm.
directions are the way to go. And as I say, I used to think it was odd that you'd have to do it, but then I started thinking, and I realized that pretty much everything that's going on in your life is going to require something like that. That is, um, you, let's say you're lost in a city that you're unfamiliar with. You're not
Mhm.
going to get unlost by, or it's not likely you're going to get unlost by just going this way and that way. It'd be a lot easier to find somebody who lives there and ask them where it is, right? You're asking,
Mhm.
you're
Mhm.
requesting some information.
Mhm.
And if you want help with a project, you have someone in mind that might be able to help you. If you don't ask them, that help's probably never going to come. If you want someone to forgive you for some terrible thing you did to them, right? You're more likely to get that forgiveness if you ask for it, right? And that goes all across the board, even like minor things like I'm in a Chinese bakery and I want an almond cookie. I've got to ask for it. It's
Mhm.
not going to just arrive in a little envelope. I've got to ask.
You're not going to just manifest it with your mind.
Well,
Well, I guess that would
probably,
be asking for
maybe,
it, but we're not.
maybe
Let's not go there.
if I were more evolved, I could do that, but I'm not there yet. Um, and um, those are some of those are minor things, right? The almond cookie is definitely not a life-shattering experience, but the same pattern holds in both the Christian and Jewish Bible. So in the New Testament, here's a little quote from the Sermon on the Mount. Um, Seek and ye shall find, knock and shall be open to you. You got to
Yeah.
ask, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Pretty clear. That's Jesus talking. In the Hebrew Bible, it's from Numbers for anyone 28. There's this incident that it happens towards the end of the wandering in the desert and the arrival at the promised land. The typical thing that goes on with God, Moses, and the people is the people complain to Moses about something, and then Moses talks to God, and God fixes it. That goes on over and over again. So in this particular incident, there's a water shortage, and it coincides with all kinds of strain on Moses. His sister, I think, who's kind of the water person, has died. the people are being jerks, that he's having to deal with a lot of stuff. But it's true, they do need water. So he says, tells God, and God says to him, well, what you should do is just tap this rock. That's all you got to do. Just tap it, and I'll take care of it. But Moses is in a bad mood, so he whacks the rock. And the water still comes out, but God's angry, and he's so angry that Moses doesn't get to go into the promised land. He's not allowed, and he's very upset by that. So Moses was not asking. He wasn't just asking, he was asking and pushing at the same time.
Yeah,
Right.
he was trying to force the issue. Yeah.
Yeah. And both was in that kind of example, a lot depends on how you ask. If Moses had just said, just tapped it, maybe even said, wasn't really supposed to even say anything. He was just supposed to lightly tap it. If he had done that, which were the instructions, everything would have been fine. So just Alexander directions, for example, they work best when you're not adding anything else. I mean, that's like the classic problem with directions. People want to add stuff. But the thing that I came out of this is that pattern, that for some things you got to put in a request. And that doesn't require any real effort other than just a thought, the lightest thought possible. And that seems to be how the world is structured. And then if you really want to go deep in the weeds, the question then might be why? Why is it that people have to do that? And maybe it has to do with free will. That's a possibility. Or developing an ability to figure out stuff on your own, not be dependent on the external universe. I don't know. You have any thoughts on that?
I don't know. This is a lot to take in suddenly. Why? And is that always the case? I don't know.
It's not the case for everything. I mean, taking the example of cutting your finger, it heals on its own. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to ask for it to get healed. That gets taken care of. But things that and maybe this at lower levels of activity that are so out of your range of thinking, there's no point in asking for stuff, although people sometimes get beneficial effects from having positive thoughts about surgery, for example, or wounds healing or something. But generally, you kind of assume that for minor stuff anyway, it takes care of itself. And maybe the mechanisms that take care of it are so far below our consciousness that it doesn't make sense.
It seems to me the examples that you brought up at the beginning, like the sprained ankle, they're to do with the healing not fully happening on its own, is to do with because it's part of movement and coordination. It's not just the ankle just sits there and heals like the cut finger.
Right. It's healing involved.
And therefore,
everything.
as you have to be mobile even while the ankle is hurt,
right,
then you have to make accommodations. And so that's when the trouble can start once you're healed, right? If the accommodations stay, which aren't good long-term solutions, they were only a useful temporary solution.
Right. But why wouldn't that take care of itself? I mean, why is it set up so that you
Well,
have
my
to
in
intervene?
that example,
Hmm.
it's because my understanding or take would be that our nervous system does not understand that it is healed and safe to walk on it normally.
Okay, so it needs a conscious mind intervention, right? A
Yes.
request or a statement. This is what I'd like, kind
But
of
it
thing.
also could need, I don't want to miss, that it also could be helped by uh, some sort of manual um, guidance. I
Right.
mean, not necessarily Alexander, it can be a physical therapist or something that kind of somehow something clicks. Oh, yeah, it's okay to walk on it this way. Again,
Right.
so something clicks that lets the nervous system know that it's safe to walk. So whether that would then come to the more kind of free, open, fluid movement that we might really be um, looking for or not, but it might. Anyway, I think you know what I'm
Well, it
saying.
might
It
be
would
that
need some intervention that would help the signaling know.
so maybe that's interesting because maybe for some people, they're just not going to be capable of mounting an intervention on their own. And what they really are going to need is some another mind at work, basically.
Mm-hmm,
Could be a
mm-hmm,
massage therapist, could be an Alexander teacher, it could be the mother of a small child who
mm-hmm,
you maybe uses their hands or maybe just says the right thing. Um, because you can't, not everyone is capable of self-directing. If you're in a lot, especially if you're in a lot of pain, that's not gonna be that easy.
mm-hmm.
So, but again, you need something to to weaken
To
the.
help your subconscious know that it's okay to walk this way, and then once that's okay, then it's okay to. Then it feels more safe, okay to move more freely and to experiment and like, oh wow, now I'm not walking and I'm
Yeah,
walking so fluidly and balanced,
right.
so but it's
Hmm.
you've got to feel that it's safe to. I'm just thinking of this
Mhm.
sprained ankle situation that's healed, long healed, that it's safe to put weight on it, to etc.
So
You know.
maybe the reason why you have to do something, either yourself or get someone else to help, is it's in the first instance yourself, it's teaching you how to be responsible for unfortunate habits of movement. And if it's somebody else, it teaches you how important it is to be in community or relationship or whatever.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Maybe that's the reason. Uh, but ultimately, I mean, if I could just
I'm
stand,
thinking.
if I could
Sorry.
just sit down and think, okay, it's dinner time, um, and someone will just, suddenly dinner will arrive, and that's how my life was for everything. Maybe I,
Just speak it out loud into your phone and it will.
yeah, maybe I wouldn't develop intellectually or physically or any other way. It'd be kind of like a little machine that
I'm
doesn't.
thinking of another example that might be. Um, I just keep coming back to the sprained ankle example, but another example of how that might resolve would be by doing some sort of movement that's totally outside or gets you outside of your head, like dancing.
Okay,
Um,
yeah.
but again, I think it's that you descending a different, by doing this such a different movement, and then you realize that you can move freely and you're enjoying it, and it's, but again, it's subconsciously though, that signal is getting through that it's okay to move like that, and it actually feels good, and I can move more freely and easily, and yeah.
So, but you have to decide to take up dancing, right?
Yes.
It,
Or
it's not going to
yeah.
just happen on its own. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it may ultimately be about free will or developing the ability to have free will. I don't know. Anyway, that's really all I've got to say. You want to add anything?
I
I mean,
maybe took it in a direction you didn't know, but
no, I
I
mean, I
do
have no
feel.
idea really what direction it should go in. But as I say, I was for a long time
I
just
think once
curious.
the signals get clearer and more accurate, I mean, our nervous system is always doing what's best for us based on the information it gets. So if the information it's getting is more accurate to what is possible, it's going to move more easily and freely, and etc.
But it
etc.
has to get, because a lot of times the kind of habits that might occur with, say, a sprained ankle years, decades later, is you have no idea that there is this habit in the first place, and you
Right,
certainly are unlikely to have any sense of where it came from.
right, right.
So,
But giving yourself a direction, or getting some hands-on guidance that then it's still though working with the signals. It's all on the subconscious. You might not know, it might not it doesn't matter that
right.
it's about a sprained ankle that you did when you were 5 and you can't
Oh,
even remember.
no,
um,
it
um,
definitely doesn't matter.
but something in your
But
body
you have to
still knows
empower it.
that.
I mean, you
Mhm,
have to do the nudge.
mhm.
It's there waiting.
Yeah.
It wants to help, but it
Mhm.
isn't likely
It
to
has
do.
to know that it can. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
has to hear from you or from your conscious brain, I guess. Anyway, that's
Mhm.
all I've got on that.
Yes.
So, thank you for this. My guest has been Imogen Ragone, an Alexander Technique teacher in Wilmington, Delaware. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.